All right, it's 6:35, so I think we should get going. And ahead of time, apologies for any unplanned for noise from our children in the background. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Albany Disability Squad's Board of Education Candidates Forum. My name is Neri Castillo McIntyre. I'm the father of India McIntyre, a third grader at Cornell who splits her time between the gen ed classroom and the special day class, and Ulysses McIntyre, a kindergartner also at Cornell.
I'm Amy Appel, and I'm the parent of Alex Appel, who is a general education student at Albany High School. And running this forum from behind the scenes is Daniel Cardozo, who is the coordinator for Familias Latinas de Albany, and is the parent of Nora Hanley Cardozo, who is also a general education student at Albany High School. The mission of Albany Disability Squad is to advocate for the educational rights of students with disabilities and to provide support to their families. Our parent support group meets the second Wednesday of every month. And our next meeting will be on Wednesday, October 16th at 6:30. We hope that you will join us. For more details, please visit our website at albanydisabilitysquad.org.
The squad has been working hard to develop a collaborative relationship, or a number of them, with the Albany Unified School District's Board of Education and Administration, without shying away from pushing them to fulfill their legal obligations to AUSD students with disabilities. The squad is also establishing relationships with other groups involved with AUSD schools, helping them when and whenever possible.
The format of this forum is as follows. Each of the three candidates will join us separately for 20 minutes and respond to the same set of questions they all received in advance. Unlike other forums, the squad has asked questions designed to focus candidates' answers primarily on the issues affecting AUSD students with disabilities.
Each candidate will leave the forum after their 20 minutes are over, at which point we will welcome the next candidate. After all three candidates have spoken, we invite you to join us in a discussion to decide which top candidates to endorse.
Okay, so the first candidate to join us this evening is Brian Beall. Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm Brian Beall. I'm running for the school board. And I think the main reason why I'm running is that I'm attracted by a challenge, and I see that the Albany Unified School District has like the biggest challenge there is right now in trying to deal with the COVID-19 situation. So beyond that, and I feel that my skills are a good match, and I'll be able to provide a more diverse perspective and different problem-solving techniques from my education in mathematics and my role in information technology. I've long been working for equity and equal treatment to different groups in Albany, specifically with my work on the Social and Economic Justice Commission. And so that's, I now see the schools as the most important place to do that work because it has the longest impact. I'm also seeing technology as a big place where I can help in the Albany School District. That there's a lot of different aspects of it. I've worked in hardware, software, network, and these are all things I think students are having challenges with. I would also say I've long been a supporter of people with disabilities. Around 2002, I was involved in the Wheelchair Foundation in Danville and bought a number of wheelchairs for people overseas. It was a thing, and I came to one of the disability squad support groups, and I was very one of your meetings, and I was very touched by some of the things that people are going through right now. I see it's really tough. So anyway, these are some of the things that are going on. I think I can help bring some more transparency into the process, and I've familiar with procedures, government. So one goal is going to be to help reduce the meeting times, so that without reducing the opportunity for input. So yeah, I think I'll let you go on to the next question then.
Amy, did you want to ask the second part of the first question? You're on mute.
Why
You're
should
muted, Amy.
ASD parents of students with disability vote? I'm so sorry. And I missed that. So I think the main thing is that I'm going to stand up for vulnerable people. Anybody that's the vulnerable group is going to get a higher, relatively high priority on my, and I think I'm going to study the problem deeply. So, and overall, I'm a good candidate, but I'm going to give special attention and make sure that to whatever degree possible, the Albany School District fulfills its obligations under the Disabilities Act.
So since you brought that up, the acts that support the rights of students with disabilities, the second question that we have for you is, what is your philosophy of special education and how will you help achieve it? And please be specific in your response, and feel free to touch upon the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, the Free Appropriate Public Education, FAPE, one of the requirements, least restrictive environment, LRE, and or inclusion, please.
Yeah, so I think first I want to kind of touch on my overall philosophy about education and what, in the course of studying what's happening in Albany Unified School District and around the state, is that I see that there's this huge burden is placed on the parents, and that how can students get equal education if they don't have equal parents? Some students don't even have parents. So this notion of, well, it's all the parents' fault or it's all the teacher's fault, I don't buy all that. So I think we need to do, as a community, we need to do as much as we can to kind of create a level playing field. And so obviously students with disability are really affected by this, because the parents are not only having to provide the income and provide the home to be here at Albany, but they're also having to step away from their work, do all these things. So I think we need a way to help the parents, the students of special ed students, to navigate the system. Like we need, and this is, again, it's my overall impression of all systems involving trying to help people. From when you call on the phone to call the hospital, it's too complicated. You shouldn't have to walk through this complicated phone tray. So I think, that's my general philosophy. In terms of the specifics, it is a little bit undeveloped right now. And I think in general, I'm going to follow the lead of the established board members. And, I'm going to dig into this as it comes along, as the cases come up. But I would say I'm going to lean more towards more towards the giving more preference, giving more priority. And I know, this is an expensive issue, special education. It takes a big impact on the budget. And the thing is, it's really, really needed is more money. So somehow we have to focus our efforts on getting more money into the system. I've had some ideas about that, but again, they need to be developed. But that's kind of the basics of how I feel. I think it's all pretty complicated, and I think there's just more is needed, both on the part of the school district, but also more from the state of California and from the counties and so forth, because we're a small town. We have the responsibility, but we aren't getting the funding from upstairs. So I think there's going to be a lot of just banging on doors up in Sacramento. Where's our money? So I think I'll let you go on to unless, let's see, there's a second part that I missed. Yeah, I think that's what I want to say is I think we need to, and what you're doing here with the Albany Disability Squad is a good first step for you, because now the parent's not on their own. So just having an organization like this, and so I think, supporting groups like this in the community could be a big part of it.
Brian, let me ask you 2 follow-up questions to that. You mentioned that you think the district needs to help families navigate the system. I think that there can be some competing priorities here, where the students and the parents representing them feel that there should be one thing, and the district administration feels that they want to provide possibly something else. So how does the school board walk the line between those 2 things?
And that's a very good question. I think it does have to do with knowing your role in the universe, so to speak. I think, in terms of just where I'm at with what you just said, I think the school district should be a soft voice, not a hard voice. They shouldn't be telling you what to do. They should be offering you assistance. That's the way. So when I say, help provide guidance, I'm thinking more of, like, for example, hey, there's this group in town. Let's say a new parent has come in. Hey, there's this group in town. So it's more of a, on the school district's level, it might be more of just providing data, providing a better website or something. And I'm not saying it's bad now, but these are the areas to look for improvements. Now, in terms of the school board itself, I think that the school board is largely, and I'm a big believer in government by the consent of the governed, so the school board's role is to solicit input, and then in a democratic process, in a transparent process, help come to a decision about anything. So, and this may be something that's more in the realm of the superintendent and the staff at the school, but the school board should be gathering input from the community and directing the school district in a directional way, in a kind of big 30,000 foot level way. We're not involved in the day-to-day details, like, oh, somebody's got suspended today. That's not something the school board would get involved in. So I guess that's what I'm saying.
Okay, and then can I also circle back around to our first question and the question of why parents of students with disabilities should vote for you specifically rather than either of the other 2 candidates?
Mm-hmm. So, great. I think, so first of all, know a lot about technology. So if you're having technology needs that come involved here with special education, I'll be able to provide deeper insight into those problems because of my 30 years experience. So that's going to be one of the biggest. I think I've got a great degree of sympathy. I'm not saying the other candidates don't, but I've worked with people with disability and so forth. I've got a strong background in education outside. I haven't been a teacher myself. My father was a professor, and my sister works up in Sacramento, or she volunteers up in Sacramento on the California County Boards of Education. So I have a lot of friends and other boards around. So I'm very connected to what's going on in education. So I think you're going to find that I'll be a good asset.
Okay, well, thanks for answering that. Now, let's move on to our third question, which is currently special education is not part of the superintendent's performance review. What special education data or metrics would you use to evaluate the superintendent's performance? And please don't offer your opinion about the current superintendent, as this is applicable to him, but any and all of his successors as well.
Right. So I think you're looking at the the evaluation form. I think there should be a sixth priority should be added to it. And that sixth priority should be something along the lines of provide equal access to education for special needs students. And the way the other priorities are broken down, there's 2 or more subpoints. And so I had a couple, and I think from watching the meetings about this, I think this may be the most critical and maybe the most inexcusable point is making sure that evaluations are done in a timely manner. So that should be like right there. I mean, you need to know where you're at in order to go on to the next step. So I think evaluations really need to be done as promptly as possible to help parents decide which direction to go in. And I said they're timely and judicious, right?
Because when you say evaluations, do you mean of students or of the superintendent?
I'm sorry. When I say evaluations, I meant I should have put this in, whether or not you qualify for special needs. That evaluation is the one I'm talking about. So I think what I saw at the meeting was that there was a lag in evaluations because of COVID-19, and that was affecting people. So then the second part of this would be encourage and assist parents in advocating for their students. So, but that's maybe coming off a little bit too one-sided. So provide access to resources. And I think, so for example, holding the special meetings that have been held, having a special night, we can talk about these issues. That's an important part of the process. I can't go into too much detail how this would be defined, because obviously it would be something that would be discussed by different board members, but that's kind of my vision of how it should at least be on the form. How it's going to be broken down is probably something, deeper discussion. So continue.
Brian, we just have a couple of minutes left. Could you come back to the second part of that question, which was what kind of data would you use to evaluate the superintendent's performance in the special education realm?
Yeah, I think I really can't go into more detail than that right now. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have a good answer for that. I'm just not there yet.
All right. So thank you very much for joining us, Brian. We're up on time, and we're going to have the next section of the conversation with the following candidate. We appreciate you stopping by and answering some of our questions.
Sure. Thanks so much, Nary and Amy.
And there she is. Hello, Melissa.
Hello.
Welcome to our forum. We're so glad that you could be here with us this evening.
Sure. Thank you for having it and giving us all the chance to speak with you all.
Great. Let's get right into the questions then. Our first question is, what motivates you to serve on the Board of Education, and why should AUSD parents and students with disabilities vote for you specifically?
Sure, thank you. So my name is Melissa Boyd. I have 2 children in the district. My big one is in 6th grade at the middle school. My little one is 3rd grade at Marin. And 2 years ago, with a couple of other parents, I formed the IDEA committee. And I know IDEA, it's a little between the Disabilities, Children Education Act and the IDEA committee at Marin. But the IDEA committee at Marin stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access. And it's a committee that I formed 2 years ago, and I've served as an officer on that committee for the last 2 years. And really, it's largely through my work with that committee, which the purpose of that committee is to advocate for and to support children and families of all different identities and backgrounds, you know, racial, ethnic, different orientations, gender identities, learning differences, disabilities, socioeconomic backgrounds, etc. And through working with that committee, which we used to meet once a month, and then during these shelter in place, you know, long distance learning times, we actually started meeting every couple of weeks. And it was really through getting to speak to different parents in our community and the administrator at our school and teachers on the committee that we really had the opportunity really to just sit and think and talk about how is this this particular time that's difficult for everyone specifically impacting certain members of our district in a way that's disproportionate to others, and being able to do that work and focus on that and have a full understanding of who our community is, and that we're not just trying to serve individually whoever is in our home, whoever our particular children are, but we're trying to serve the full community. It was really largely through that work that I started focusing on more, really thinking about what it is that I could bring to the board, and so really the reason that I would hope that that parents of children with learning differences and disabilities would want to vote for me is because my sole purpose in kind of embarking on this mission is really to be able to advocate for the children and families in our community who are not the majority, who don't always have the sort of loudest voice at the table, and that of course includes children with learning differences and disabilities, among other sort of minority groups in our district as well.
Thank you, Melissa, for that answer. By the way, I should say that in its latest iteration, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act has an I in between, which is for improvement. So you didn't steal a whole acronym from some legislation. That's right. All right, so we'll move on to the next question. Our next question is, what is your philosophy of special education and how will you achieve it? Please be specific in your answer and feel free to touch upon the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, IDIA, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Free Appropriate Public Education, FAPE, Least Restrictive Environment, LRE, and or inclusion.
Yes, so I mean, I would say that a part of my my philosophy on providing special education services is to actually adhere to my understanding of what the letter of those laws requires, which, you know, if we're looking at ID, I'm not sure where the I fits into the old IDEA, but it, you know, certainly making sure that we are providing every child in our district with the free appropriate public education, whether their children have qualified for and have specific IEP plans, or whether there are 504 program accommodations, that the letter of those is being followed, and that if there are unforeseen, you know, sort of unpredictable circumstances that might arise where some part of a particular plan cannot be adhered to, hopefully in a temporary way, that there's open communication with parents, and that parents are notified immediately as soon as any sort of an issue is realized, so that parents can be knowledgeable and can advocate for their children and can work with and be very much like an active part of the team of, case manager, teachers, et cetera, administrators who are making sure that those programs are adhered to, and also very much with a deliberate mind toward making sure that all students are being taught and provided these resources in an inclusive way, so that just as any parent wants their child to certainly not be ostracized or be othered, and to have the full range of experiences of electives, of athletic events, etc., to be a full-rounded student, that children who are getting these resources are not missing out on other activities that they would want to participate in, because it's kind of an either or. Either you are having this resource or working with this para-educator at this time, or you're singing or doing theater or something like that. So those things are very important to me. And also I would just add that in general, I think that I'm wanting there to be more of an understanding in our district that providing special education services to the letter of the law and to the specific plans and programs that have been put in place for our children benefits our children and their parents, but it benefits all of us. We're not able to succeed as the district if we're not providing, the appropriate public education. If we're not doing that, there's a very sort of, sometimes I think that these issues can be thought of as something on the side, some sort of a, well, we're going to make sure that we are providing what's needed for the majority, and then whatever else is not the majority is something that, we kind of make time for as we find it, or make money for as there's extra. And that's not the way that this should be looked at. This is a community where each child needs to be provided the appropriate services, and where all of our children need to have the benefit of being in the same classroom with each other, learning from each other, teaching each other, understanding who makes up our community, and all the different diverse abilities and backgrounds, et cetera, that make that community up. So I think that my philosophy on special education, in addition to providing the actual services that have been agreed to and contracted for and are legally required, would also just be to have more of an understanding in our community that that when these services are provided appropriately, that this is a benefit that is provided to our whole community. And I mean, you also avoid lawsuits that can be, that can happen, which remove money from the district, if you're not adhering to them. So there are various ways in which these are not issues that only impact children and families with disabilities and learning differences, but that they impact all of us. And I'd want that to be more clear.
Thank you, Melissa. It occurred to me that the previous candidate who we interviewed did take a few minutes at the beginning of his remarks to just give kind of a personal introduction, and we didn't do that with you. So would you like to take a minute or two for that?
Sure. I some of it I've said already, but I will. I don't know. I might be saying some things again, but I'll try to say them quickly. So my family and I have been in Albany for 7 years. I have two daughters. They are both in our public schools. My older daughter is at the middle school, just started 6th grade this year. She was at Marin before that. And my younger daughter is at 3rd grade in Marin. And she was at the Albany Children's Center for transitional kindergarten before that. And I talked about my work on the Marin Idea Committee, which has been really impactful for me. And in addition to that, I've served as an officer on the district's Black Parent Advisory Group for the last 2 years, which has also been really rewarding. I would just say that, as I said in answer to the first question, what drives me most strongly to want to serve on the board is a desire to advocate for members of groups, of underrepresented groups in our district, who have not always had the largest voices in the past. Particularly looking at the way budget decisions were made. Initially, I know a lot of those were walked back, thankfully, but having the opportunity to speak with some friends who are even members of this squad and hear personally their concerns about the ways in which budget decisions were made and the cuts to paraeducators and the concern that certain needs are being sort of left on the side. Those types of issues are what most make me excited about being able to serve on the board.
Thank you. So our third question is, currently special education is not part of the superintendent's performance review. What special education data and metrics would you use to evaluate the superintendent's performance? And please don't offer your opinion about the current superintendent, as this would apply not only to him, but any future superintendent.
Yes, and I, to be honest, was surprised when I saw that question and realized that that's not a part of the way in which the superintendent is evaluated. That's kind of shocking to me and not a good thing. I mean, I really think that the survey that that the squad just put out, and which was just the amount of data that was gotten and the way that it was you know, sort of collated and presented was just such an impressive undertaking. But I think that those metrics would really be, I mean, when you're evaluating how well this the provision of these services is going or how well it's not going, I think that the most important data to get is really directly from parents. And so I think that you know, with regard to these issues, certainly it's the parents of the children who the district is needing to serve, who have the best, who are the experts on this and have the best information regarding what's working and what's not working. And so those sort of metrics, you know, whether paraeducators are provided, if they are provided, whether they're actually providing a service to children that is supporting them in the way that they should be, you know, talking about things like whether they're going into breakout rooms and what's actually being provided there, whether case managers are provided, are in communication, are not. You know, I appreciated the way that I think the report sort of intentionally sort of balanced between, you know, these are the things that are doing, you know, that are going well, and these are the things that could use some improvement. But I think that it's really exactly those metrics that would need to be looked at in order to necessarily provide an assessment to the superintendent and to the district at large for how these services are being provided. And I would also just say that I would like to see there be a more regular, periodic, just sort of kind of staple on the agendas for the school board with some regularity, particularly right now during long distance learning, when we know, I think that it's without question that children with learning differences and disabilities are right near the top of the list of children and families who are particularly disproportionately impacted by this and can potentially really be struggling. And so I would like there to be a sort of a constant check-in so that the superintendent and the administration and also just parents and members of the district who are concerned can know how our different groups in our community are faring during all this.
Thank you for that response. I want to say that on behalf of Amy, another member of our group, Jody, and a few others who put a lot of work into the survey, we really appreciate that you took the time to review it and to take some notes of the things that are direly in need right now. So thank you. We're almost at time, but because we started a little later, we would like to ask you at least one more question. And the question is kind of related to what you just spoke about right now, about the views, the reports that you may or may not get from administration, and the reports that you get from parents. So the question is, what will you do as a member of the board if parents raise special education concerns, but staff or the administration tells you that there is not a problem?
Right. And yes, this is, you know, just in line with things that I was talking about just recently. I would feel strongly that this is for parents of the children in question to be saying what is needed. I, you know, I would hope that there could be always an open line of communication so that all of the different members of a child's team are working together in concert and hopefully with the goal towards supporting that child to the best ability possible. But certainly if there's a disagreement between the parents of a child and anyone else who's providing, you know, any teacher, case manager, et cetera, who's working with that child, I don't see how it's possible to put anyone's view or anyone's assessment above that of parents, especially right now while we're doing this long distance learning. And so, you know, the people who are hopefully working with children still, although I understand they're not maybe working with them as much as they should be during this time, having looked at some of the survey results, but even the professionals who are working with children right now, they certainly are not as knowledgeable about what's happening with the children as parents. And also just in talking about long distance learning, this wasn't a specific question, but I do want to be clear because it's something that we've talked about a great deal in the Marin Idea Committee, that I think that it's very important to prioritize having certain children back at on-site as soon as it's safe to do so. And at the top of that list, I personally would put children who do not have people at home with them to care for them or who can support their education, and children who have learning differences or disabilities such that it is, if not impossible, extremely difficult to learn in this way, in this long distance way. So I would like to see those children prioritized above, frankly, my own children who have two parents who are at home with them and do not have learning differences or a disability and are able to take in the material this way. I would certainly love for my children to be back at school, and you know, they're missing out, and it's a difficult time for us all, but I think it's incredibly important to prioritize the needs of those who really need to be back on campus.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Mary, is there anything else you want to ask before we switch to the next candidate?
No, I think in the interest of time, we can close out. But Melissa, if you would like to say something before we go on to the next candidate, please, the floor is yours.
I guess I would just say quickly, even and some members of the squad who I'm friendly with know this, but I just wanted to be clear how important I think it is for, and I asked for members of the squad, parents, thoughts on what the district is doing well and not well, and just how important I think it is to, regardless of how much anyone who is not facing these issues is trying to be thoughtful and trying to think about what how to best serve all the members of our community, that really there's no substitute for actually listening to all of the different members of our community who are facing these specific, unique sort of challenges and having to negotiate these spaces. And so just that I appreciate this opportunity to explain a little bit about myself, and I would appreciate opportunities in the future to just continue to learn about how to support this group of really impassioned advocate parents who I appreciate you being here and organizing, and yes, that's it.
Thank you, Melissa. We really
Thank you.
appreciate you stopping by, and hopefully we'll get to talk some more.
Yes, I hope so. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi there, Veronica.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you for your patience. We got a little of a later start than originally planned. You know how these things go.
It's life right now.
That's right.
Welcome, Veronica. So As you can tell, this is Veronica Davidson. She's our third candidate who will be talking with us this evening, and we're so glad that you can be here with us.
Thank you for having me.
So we let the other two candidates have a few minutes before launching into the questions just to introduce themselves to the community of viewers. So would you like to go ahead and do that?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm Veronica Davidson. Many people know me as Bonnie. I'm a parent in Albany. So I went to Mills College where I studied education, and I have my degree in child development. I did a lot of research and work on students who learn alternatively and need other supports. And I'm a community member in Albany. You'll often see me around with my kids. We're together a lot right now. We like to walk in the neighborhood and enjoy the outdoors. And I also am a community, I guess, volunteer coordinator. I helped get the Albany Inside Out movement started for our small businesses. And I would really be eager to stay a part of our school district in the upcoming future so that I can continue to just be a part of everything and really hopefully just help support all of these needs that are arising during COVID times and have been a longer standing set of needs.
Okay, thank you so much. So let's go into our first question, which is, what motivates you to serve on the Board of Education, and why should parents of students with disabilities vote for you?
Well, my children motivate me. So I really would like to give back to our community. I have always felt a strong connection for students with disabilities. When I was in third grade, I was at Thousand Oaks Elementary School, and it was a hard year. The teacher I had cancer, so we had a lot of substitute teachers that year. And academically, things were fine for me, but emotionally, it was really hard to be in a classroom for me with all the different teachers. And someone came up with the idea, I don't quite remember who it was, that I could go volunteer in the special day classroom. And I went in almost daily, and I spent a chunk of hours in there every day. And I got to support the students in there. And I learned so much in my time in there. It was really wonderful to just normalize a learning experience for those children alongside learning myself. And so that kind of started it all out for me, was that little moment there. And since then, I've always, been the kid who befriended someone who didn't have anyone to eat lunch with. I've always tried to reach out to people who I thought were learning differently, socially needed more support and things like that. And I carried that through in my studies at Mills College and getting my teaching credential and in my student teaching. I worked as a paraeducator for a little while at Cornell, and I really enjoyed getting to support the students there who needed more and something different. The year that I was there, the second grades were at 27 students. And so that was decided that there would be a paraeducator to support every classroom and pull small groups. And I got to do that. And I think it made a huge difference for all of those students. And I still have connections with many of them and see them around town, and they still remember it as being a really positive thing. Yeah. So I also last year in teaching in Albany saw a lot of the intricacies of how special education is playing out in our district right now. The positives of it and some of the challenges that we still really need to address. And I think seeing that from the inside, I might have a different perspective than other people and other candidates. And I can speak more to that in how I answer the future questions, but I definitely have some insights and some ideas.
Thank you, Veronica. I see you anticipated the next question with your use of the word intricacies. And speaking of intricacies, our next question for you is, what is your philosophy of special education and how will you achieve it? Please be specific in your answer, and feel free to touch upon the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Free Appropriate Public Education, FAPE, Least Restrictive Environment, LRE, and or inclusion.
So I was just going back over all of these things today to, make sure I had all my thoughts in the right places. And the one thing that really stuck out to me was, the least restrictive learning environment. That's always been a challenging one. And being a teacher in the district last year, I saw how delicate that balance is to strike the least restrictive environment and still offer all of the support. So I would say that my philosophy of special education really is to educate the whole child. That's probably just my philosophy of education in general, and it goes across all different types of learning. I think that supporting the social and emotional needs of students always has to come first. If we don't support those, then we can't really have effective teaching and learning happening. So I think that a lot of times we miss the social emotional needs and the social emotional cues, especially of our special needs students. We get so busy and it gets so frantic that we don't give a lot of time to really get in and address those. I think for me, let's see, I have some notes here too. To provide the free, appropriate public education and just to really give all students a more rounded experience, I would say just more small interactions for our students with special needs where they're having more typical time with their peers so that they can really feel like they're a part of the community and part of the school. I think that the academic instruction for a good part is really focused on in our schools. And for our students with special needs, I think at the low elementary level, that's being done fairly well. I think at the middle school and the high school level, I don't know that we're always providing the least restrictive environment and we're always supporting our learners in having the same access to the education as their peers, because we don't have enough different streams for everybody to kind of swim down, and that's really challenging to provide. The one thing I read that I really wanted to just key in on here is that this part of the whole thing is when a school professional believes that a student between the ages of 3 and 21 may have a disability that has a substantial impact on the student's learning or behavior, the student is entitled to an evaluation in all areas related to the suspected disability. That's something I would really like to focus on. I would really like to focus on listening to our school professionals, our teachers. I would really like to hear when they have a concern, because often they're raising small little flags before we get to a bigger incident. And I think that if we just started to listen to those a little bit more carefully, we could support our students earlier and more thoroughly and more effectively in our district. I hope that kind of answers it a little, but I kind of talked around it a little there.
Thanks so much for that answer, Melissa. Not Melissa, I'm very sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so our third question is, currently special education is not part of the superintendent's performance review. What special education data and metrics would you use to evaluate the superintendent's performance? And we're not asking you to evaluate the current superintendent, and this question would apply not only to him, but anyone following him as well.
Well, I like to think that anything that's in place has been longer standing than one person. So, and we'll continue on. So we need to really look at that. So I actually wrote what I would say is my rough draft of what would be a like exceeding standard if we were evaluating the superintendent on this. So what I wrote was, proactively ensures a special education plan is in place to meet all current IEPs and 504s in the district with consideration for additional and future student needs. Accountability system is in place at each school site to ensure that student plans are being met, including communication logs between specialists, site staff, and parents. That was just my rough draft of it. There's some tweaks and things to add, but I think that sums it up pretty well. The communication between the specialists and the school site staff and the families is somewhere that I think our superintendent could really support and encourage. And I think that making sure we are really looking at how many IEPs we have, how many 504s we have currently, how many are being met to 100% of the IEP or the 504 and how many are at a percentage, and what we need to do to bring those at a percentage up to being fully met would be my sort of first starting place. And I think that's what I wrote. That's what I thought about it.
I have to say, even though most everyone is off camera right now, I can see in my mind's eye one of our members, Cheryl Theus from the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, smiling because in your previous response, you talked about what is known as child find. And you also mentioned that least restrictive environment is not fully understood. And that result was borne out in the results of the survey that the Albany Disability Squad conducted a few weeks ago, with the help, of course, of Amy, who is here, and Jody, and some of our other members who put a lot of effort into it.
It was a really fantastic survey. I took it. It was actually so well done. And I felt honored to get to take that survey, actually. So thank you so much.
And thank you for providing the feedback. And that brings me, because that has to do with parent feedback and possible differences with the district. What will you do as a board member if parents raise special education concerns, but the administration tells you that there is no problem, nothing to see here? Well,
as I said in my last forum like this, I'm not one to have the fleece pulled over my eyes. I definitely look further, and I talk to a lot of people about a lot of things. So I think that I would probably have a pretty good understanding of whether or not that was an honest response. I also would probably try to do another survey similar to what you all did, and or have a forum. I was just really thinking about our board meetings and how we have these issues that come up, and as someone put it very beautifully, they've already been sort of bubbling under the surface for a while if they make it to a board meeting. Hearing people ahead of time. I also really want to work on having more trust between our district staff and our board and our teachers and our parents. Really think we need to work on that trust, and a lot of that comes from more open and honest communication, and I think sometimes that means you have to call someone when they're not being as honest as they should be.
Do we have time for one or two more questions? I'm being a bad timekeeper here.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Veronica. I think our fifth question is, in times of crisis like now, how would you prioritize which challenges to focus on, and how should the board determine what is the most important?
This is a really good question. I think everyone has a different idea on this right now, but there's one thing that we can all agree on, and that is that some of our students need to be back at school sites and back with more support from our school staff and our district sooner than others. So I think that would probably be my focus, would be to support the students with the greatest needs. A lot of those are our students with IEPs and 504s. Most parents are not trained like I am to where I could meet those needs 90% of the time at home. That's not the case for most of our families, and it's overwhelming. They have jobs they're trying to hold down. So I think that would really be my focus. And then I would focus on students whose parents were otherwise unable to provide them the support that they need. So that would be my focus in this time of crisis, and how we move forward is really just meeting the needs of the students and doing the best that we can for those who really need it. I know it's not 100% equitable and fair if we started there, but sometimes when we're in a crisis, we have to look at the different levels of getting back to the 100% support. And I think that our students with IEPs and 504s at the end of last year, and maybe even in the early start of this year, are not getting the same access as our other more typically learning students. Oh, and how
That
should I
is,
determine, sorry, how should I determine what's most important? Let me hear your response and then I can answer that if needed.
oh no, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
How
I
should
just-
you determine what's most
How
important?
should we determine that? I think that we can look at the Zoom attendance. I think we can look at the work that's been produced and turned in by students. And I think we can turn to our teachers for feedback about which students they think need the most support and additional help. And we can look at our IEPs and our 504s and determine which students really are probably not having their needs met at home. And beyond that, we can, again, like I said, do a survey and talk to our families. Okay.
All right. I'm going to spare all of us a question on SB 98, which everyone was really waiting for. But please, if you would, in these last few minutes, is there anything else that you would like to share with the Albany Disability Squad in making our decision to cast our vote?
Yes, please don't take the first few minutes of my own child interrupting as what will be me in the future. Also, I really feel passionately about supporting this families in Albany that have students with disabilities. I have worked with students outside of the classroom and supported inside of the classroom to offer alternative learning plans for those who didn't have their needs met in traditional school environments. And it's been really, really, really amazing to watch what can be done if you focus in and actually give those children what they need. There's huge growth that can happen. I also really would like to make sure that in the future, parents of students with disabilities don't feel like they have to form a squad, which I think is amazing that you all did. But I said in a past forum, I'm surprised that we let our parents get to this point of feeling that we needed a squad just to get the basic needs met of these students. That's what I'll say on all of that. I am a teacher. I know the district on the inside. I know the district as a parent. I know our city. I know a lot of your students probably through being at the school sites or other ways. So thank you for having me on here.
Thank you so much, Veronica. Okay, so we really appreciate all the thought that went into your question and into your responses to our questions. And so I think we're going to call it a night. So we have a few comments we'd like to make to the other attendees. So I don't know what the Zoom etiquette is for.
It's fine. It froze right in the middle of you saying that, so I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Have a good night.